Are our choices real? Does God predetermine everything we do, just whether or not we actually choose Him? Do we have agency? This is a really big debate, particularly within the church, but it's also something that non believers look outside of Christianity into. And there is a really big heyday had with ideas like, well, if God is in control of everything, then he's responsible for all the evil in the world. Or if God is in control of everything, then he's just choosing who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. And these are really fair points and points that need to be addressed. Later on in the series, I'm going to be addressing a lot more specifically the issues within the church. For the sake of this video, I just wanted to make a philosophical primer for why I believe that free will is absolutely vital for Christianity to be coherent, for reality to make sense, and just for the simple fact that it corresponds with what we experience on a daily basis. We make choices and we genuinely believe that they have weight. They are, our choices bear meaning and value because of the fact that we have the ability to choose. It's not just us dancing to programming that was initialized in us from before we ever even understood what life was. So, what I want to do is just make a philosophical case for the necessity of free will. Starting off with how God could have made reality when it comes to free will. To my knowledge, and if anybody else has any workable ways that they can think of, please let me know. But to my knowledge, there's 4 workable ways that God could have made the universe. He could have made a universe where there is no such thing as good or evil. We just do, and there's no weight to anything in a positive or negative sense. The second way he could have made the universe is there's only good. Evil does not exist. Rebellion, lawlessness does not exist. It is only good. The problem there is we don't have real choice. If the only thing that we can do is good, that means that the love we do, the kindness we do, the good we do, it's just programming, and there's really no value to it because it's just what we're made to do. The third way he could have made the universe is nothing. Like, he could have just made absolutely nothing, right? And then the fourth way, the fourth workable way that God could have made the universe is the way in which we see it enacted on a daily basis, which is good exists, but because free will is also a factor, God made it possible for us to deviate from what is good. God made it possible for us to misalign ourselves with good. And I can already kind of hear a potential idea for a fifth workable way. And that's the idea of, well, what if God just made a universe that is all evil? Well, this is where I'm going to make a statement that maybe not all of us are either familiar with or comfortable with. But yes, God does have limitations, and they are limitations that he places on himself. I'll get into that here later on in the video, but I just want to set that up for later. It is impossible for God to make a universe in which only evil exists, because by his very nature, he is good. God didn't create the universe with good being the structure for morality arbitrarily. Like, God didn't just say, yeah, helping the old lady across the street, that's a good thing. And giving to the poor, oh yeah, that's a good thing. No, God didn't like write a list. God created the universe with good as the focal point of morality based off of his own nature. Good is good because that is what God is. Love is love because that is what God is. Goodness and love has existed in him from before time was even created. So in the universe he created, the idea of loving good is a direct reflection of his very nature. That's why it's not arbitrary. That's why the standard for morality can never change. Because as long as God is eternal and immutable in his being and character, so too goodness, kindness, love are also immutable and eternal. They're a direct reflection of the God who created this universe. So, all that to say, free will is absolutely vital, absolutely necessary in order for things like good and love and kindness to exist, because they have to come from a choice to decide, I'm going to do what is good as opposed to doing what is evil. That's what brings value, that's what provides substance to choosing good. But let's look at the inverse of it. Let's look at what things would be like if we didn't have choice, if God made it so that he chose who was elect and who wasn't elect. And let's look at it a little deeper than that. Let's say that God just predetermines all things, right? Breakfast we eat, clothes we wear. If God predetermines all things, or even just who goes to heaven, who goes to hell, there is no real choice that matters, right? And I'm trying to play this as fairly as I can, because there are some people who believe that God predetermines everything, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, clothes we wear. And then there's people who believe that no, we have free will within life. The only thing that we don't have control of is whether or not we are elect, whether or not we go to heaven. And my contention with that is that's the one choice that matters the most. If I don't have a say in whether or not I place my faith in Christ, no choice I make ultimately matters, because I'm going where I'm going no matter what. Whether it's smoking or non-smoking, I'm going where I'm going, regardless of any choice I decide to make. So the pushback to that is, well, isn't God sovereign over everything? Doesn't God have power over everything? And this is where I want to dig a little more into the idea of God limiting himself. Yes, God is all powerful. Yes, God is all present. Yes, God is all knowing. But he limits himself in order that we may have real, genuine, loving relationship with him. If God predetermined everything, a common way of phrasing it by a gentleman by the name of Frank Turek is, we'd just be moist robots. We'd be fleshy, bionic creatures with programming, and we'd have no control over the ultimate decision in life that lands us in eternity, either smoking or non-smoking, right? Heaven or hell. And a really good example of God limiting himself due to his nature is in the idea of gravity. It's just one out of so many various constants, right? And there's an argument for the existence and necessity of God called the fine-tuning argument. And this argument comprises a series of logical reasoning points, one of them being the constant gravity, the constant power of gravity. If gravity were any weaker or any stronger, I mean by like such a small degree, life would be impossible in our planet, right? And absolutely, if God wanted to, he could make gravity in constant flux. He could increase the strength one day, decrease the strength one day, make it non-existent another day, and life would be absolutely chaotic. There would be no structure, no basis for life just on that one component that is necessary for life: consistent gravity. But because of his nature, he's loving, he's kind, he's orderly, he is not a God of chaos. He structures all these points of necessity for life and the solar systems to exist. He does this in such a way so that we can thrive in a consistent cosmic economy, if you will, a cosmic existence. And in that same way that God limits himself from using his full ability to just run amok with the solar systems and the universe, God also limits himself when it comes to predestination or predetermining things. And I want to make a very big distinction here. God's foreknowledge is not the same as God predetermining things. God, from before he created the universe, knew and knows everything that's going to unfold and how it's all going to end. Knowing what's going to happen is not the same as God orchestrating and creating all things to happen that way. And the way that I think people like to look at God is almost like as time is formulating, God is making all these things happen like in real time. And there is an element of truth to that, absolutely. God, if he so chooses, can step into time in order to make things work according to his plan and benefit. And again, his plan and benefit is the plan and benefit for our benefit, for all of us to be in loving eternal relationship with him in the new heaven and the new earth. But he doesn't do this 24/7. A better way to think of it, as opposed to God constantly orchestrating world events or global events or universal events, is God created. God spoke, created the universe, and then from there, he allowed processes to occur with guidance here and there. And he does that particularly with us because he wants to give us the choice. He wants to give us the ability to choose. And a really good example of how God can let us just go free and choose, but still work in our lives is, think miraculous incidences. There have been at least two points in my life where I firmly believe I should have died in a car accident. I was with my best friend in one of those instances, and I can't explain me and my friend getting out of a circumstance like that completely unscathed. No damage to the vehicle. I can't. You can chalk that up to coincidence. There's too many variables for me to logically and consistently do that. I can't. So I believe that God absolutely steps in and he'll save lives. He will work out plans for our good. And sometimes he lets things happen for our good. Other times, life is just happening. It's not always God sticking his hand and making things happen. And the other side of it's true too. Bad things happening isn't always Satan. Sometimes it's just life. And accidents happen because we have free will, because the world that we live in is fallen, and because it doesn't work with us as it should. Things happen. Natural events, disaster, tragedy, these things happen. And after this series in free will, I'm going to be getting into, is God a moral monster? And that's where I really want to dig in more on, why is there suffering? Why is there evil? But for right now, this will just be a good primer for just the philosophical and logical reasoning for why free will is a necessity. And in the next couple videos, I'll be specifically contending against Calvinistic ideas, verses that are used to support the idea that God chooses his elect, and the inverse of that, chooses who goes to hell. So please stick around for that. Let me know if there's anything that is helpful for you guys. I'd be really happy to get ideas for future content and future videos from you. I have plenty of stuff lined up. I have a series right now, a series after this one, and then a teaching series after that I'm drawing up. But anything that I can do to make videos in between all of that to answer any questions that anybody has, I'd be thoroughly happy to do. But thank you so much, and God bless you, and may God's will be done in your life.